Welcome to the Creative Me podcast, coming to you from Guernsey in the Channel Islands. Hello and welcome to episode 31 of the Creative Me podcast. Today we're talking productivity, one of my favourite subjects. I'm listening to an audiobook at the moment called How to Be a Productivity Ninja by Graham Allcott. I feel quite confident the ninja word is used a bit sarcastically, so already I'm enjoying it. One of the key things that I've taken from this book is that Graham Allcott says time management is dead, and he talks a lot about attention management, and that really struck a chord with me. I began thinking about how I am very focused at certain points in the day, and at other points in the day I'm not. And so he talks about scheduling things that are going to take a lot of focus at those key points. It makes a lot of sense. Listening to this book got me thinking about some of the things I do to ensure I'm as productive as possible, and I thought I'd share them today. There are 7 tips that I'm going to share, and I'll start with tip number 1, which is the whiteboard trick. I have a whiteboard in my office, and when I am trying to focus on one very specific project, but other ideas and to-do items keep popping into my head, I take a second, grab a pen, write the thing that popped into my head onto the whiteboard, and then carry on with the task in hand. That way I can remove the distraction from my head and deal with it later. That's tip number 1. Tip number 2 is to identify your MITs every day. MIT is not a new concept at all. I'm afraid I don't know who first thought of it, but MIT stands for most important task. I go for a maximum of 3 most important tasks, and again, they go on the whiteboard. Those are the 3 things that I've got to get done that day, and if I get more than that done, that's totally fine, but I'm aiming for those 3. I think the original MIT approach was just 1 most important task, so I take 3 and I prioritise them. So number 1 is my most important task, but I've got 2 extra ones. They're almost like bonus tasks. So I do that when I've got a lot on my plate. My third tip is not to work in complete silence. Now, this is a very personal preference. I find that I get distracted by complete silence, which I appreciate. Sounds absolutely ridiculous, but it's true. I make use of a website called Focus at Will, which gives a variety of different music options to help me concentrate. A free option, and it's one I've mentioned before, it's called Coffivity, which gives you the noise of a coffee shop in the background. And there are also lots of apps that you can get on your mobile device to create white noise so that you're not working in complete silence. My 4th tip is to work in short, focused bursts. Now, this relates to what I said at the very start of the episode about identifying the points in the day where you've got the best attention span, the most focused, and definitely schedule your more complex or your most important tasks to coincide with those points in the day. You know, you don't want to be doing something like taking the rubbish out if you're working from home at a point in the day when you are most focused. It just doesn't make sense. The other way you can work in short focus bursts is to use the Pomodoro technique. I've mentioned this on the podcast before, so I won't go into great detail, but essentially a Pomodoro is, roughly half an hour, 25 minutes, something like that. You time yourself for that amount of time, and then you take a 5-minute break, which can be your browsing Facebook or going for a breath of fresh air. And then another Pomodoro starts. I tend to use 30-minute chunks, and 5 minutes of that 30-minute chunk is my break time, as that just makes the maths easier. I'm not sure what the original Pomodoro time is, but for me, 30 minutes, and within that 30 minutes, a 5-minute break is absolutely perfect. Top tip number 5 is make sure you don't use your email inbox to manage your tasks. It's not a task manager, it's an inbox for your emails. If you'd like to know more about this, check out podcast episode 26, What Inbox Zero Really Is and How to Do It. You can find that at martinellis.com/26. Next up, productivity tip number 6 is to change location. This one really works for me if I'm really stuck in a rut and feeling super distracted. Just grabbing my laptop and going and finding a cafe with free Wi-Fi to sit down, plug in and work makes all the difference. So if you are struggling to focus, consider changing locations. It might be that you need to change the location of where you're working in your home. That also works. Give it a try. And finally, top tip number 7. You're not going to like this one, but in your next 5-minute break when you're working with the Pomodoro technique, tidy up your desk. Yes, I know, it's one I hate too, but it just psychologically seems to make such a difference to focus. This is very much a personal thing, but I'm hoping it'll apply to you as well. If your desk is clear or your workspace, if you're a creative entrepreneur, you may have more of a kind of workshop environment. If your space is clear, organised and tidy, you do better work. And also there's the productivity aspect of it that, if you need a piece of paper or a piece of equipment and it's where you expect it to be, that saves time and you can spend the rest of the time focusing on the work that you're doing there and then, your most important task. So in your next break, tidy your desk or your workspace. Right then, those are my top 7 productivity hacks or tips to help you be productive every single day. Now it's over to you. I'd love to hear from you. Tell me if you try any of these tips out and if they work or don't work for you. I'm really interested to hear that. Also, what do you do to manage your attention span, to ensure you're as focused and as productive as possible every single day? I'm really interested to hear from you, particularly if you work from home. Let's start some discussion about this because I think we all need help in this area. What I really recommend you do if you'd like to talk productivity with like-minded individuals is hop over to my private Facebook group, the Lightbulb Club, and you'll find that at facebook.com/groups/Lightbulb Club. Please ask to join the club and I will accept your application, as it were. That sounds really odd. There's no application, you just have to click a button. So please ask to join and I will accept you into the group and we can start talking about productivity, one of my very favourite subjects. Okay then, it's been a very short and sweet episode from me today, but I hope you've enjoyed it and I also hope you will tune in to the next episode of the Creative Me podcast. Thanks so much for listening.